Hi, I'm Subhadra. I am a yoga teacher, wellness coach, producer, mother of four, and the owner of Yoga Angels International. This is Strip to the Naked Truth podcast. This is our third episode. And before I tell you what the third episode is about, I'm going to do a little recap that we've done our first and second episode. First episode on when my family left me at three, both mom and dad within the space of age 3 and 4, where they migrated to America to make a better life for myself and my other three siblings. And of course, me being left with my grandma and all of the wonderful, yet not so wonderful things that transpired during that time. The second episode was about one of the incidents that changed the entire trajectory of my life. And what I talked about was the places we pause and we take a picture of something that unfolds in our life, and then from there, how it changed us, whether for the positive or the negative charge, but definitely change our thought waves and just how we present ourselves in the world. This episode now, however, please, by the way, go back and watch those episodes because it will put some of the what I'm going to talk about today in context. So when my parents left at the age of 3, my dad left, and the age of 4, my mom left. I ended up not seeing them again until I was 15 years old. And this episode is about what I discovered once I migrated myself from Jamaica to the United States of America. And I flew right into the money earning Mount Vernon. That's what they called it them days. The money earning Mount Vernon. And that is where I ended up meeting my dad and mom again. The date was May 31st. I think it was May 31st, 1986, certainly. It was 1986 in May. And I went in on spring. And never ever seen spring. I'm in Jamaica. We don't have spring. We are pretty much summertime, right? And even in our winter, when we have a little breeze, we never have spring where it looks like America. So when I went in there, I remember thinking, oh my God, these people are so dirty. They have all the dirty leaf on the floor, because in Jamaica, we swept the leaves up, you see. We always swept the dirt. That was something we learned from we were young. We sweep the yard, and you will sweep the dirt, you pile up the leaves, and you clean the dirt and make the dirt clean. Go figure that one. But that was how our culture was. And when I landed into America, my father, who you now know if you heard from my other episode, is not really my father, but who I thought was my father at this point in time. He is the one that had the paternity fraud. He's the one that had this whole abundant love for me, but guess what? He really isn't my father. And so he was the one who came back to Jamaica at age 14. Yes, 14, exactly 14. At age 14, he returned to Jamaica, and 1 year later, at 15, I was in America. And let me tell you, I want to recap when he came to Jamaica. I was washing clothes. We washed by hands in those days. And you have your bath pan and you wash your clothes. Script. You become proficient scripper, And you make this amazing sound. You get it nice and clean. But it's a lot of work because everything you wash, you got to rinse. Then you got to wring. Then you got to take it to the line and hang it out close, pin by pin. And this thing was one long journey. However, this particular Saturday, when my father is coming in from foreign, oh my God, they didn't have to tell me wash. I was out there scrippering. I was just so happy. I am washing. I had everything spread out on the line here, there. But you have to understand, we get a big load of clothes we have to wash. It's not just you wash a little pile. You're washing a ton of clothes and all by hand. Just when I was right about to finish, he arrived. Oh my God. I cannot describe as 14. I was still very puny in the sense that I had not had puberty. And so I had this very skinny, dark frame, skinny, and really just didn't look, the still not malnutrition as bad, but I definitely did not hit puberty. They call me beanie bit. I was so small. They say you're beanie bit. Little but your talawad. These are all the little things I remember how they would describe me. And so when he when the car is driving down the lane, you can hear this car coming, and I can hear it, and I know, oh my God, this is him, because I think he was being picked up by my other uncle, which, you know the sound of his car. And so as we know the sound of his car, we're waiting, and I'm waiting, and they're like, he might call, and oh my God, we ran towards the flower gate, and, drying off the hands. And when he stepped out of the car, in my eyes, I saw God. He had on these cream pants, and the seam was extremely pointy, and it flowed around him, and he walked with a bit of a dance in his waist, confident, and he had on this like a cream shirt, buttoned down the shirt. It was just, and I'm looking at this man where I have to tell you, I had kept my father in my mind as the person on this planet Earth that was going to save me. So you imagine, I'm looking at him now physically after all these years. He left at 3. So now there I am just witnessing him, what I call the dance waddle walk towards me. And I'm running towards him. And him say, oh, Donna, and put me under. And I have to say, it's like my head was always under his armpit. I remember how he smelled. It was such a joy. I was just grinning and smiling, and just when he hugged me, I remember feeling for the just safety. I felt wanted. I felt like I belonged somewhere, because when your parents, that abandonment had set in so deeply, I never felt like I belonged anywhere. A matter of fact, I was always alone. Like I said, I spent so much time alone with the pigs and the goats. It was a validation that I have to say I needed. And so every day from that day, he was going to be there 2 weeks. And the whole idea was that he was going to file for us. And in no time, I was going to see him. So imagine them having to let me know, we're not going to go back with him. He's going to have to leave me again. Listen, all I had to hear was, he's going to get you to America in approximately a year or so. You have to file the papers, and that's what happened. And in exactly a year, I was on my own jet plane migrating to the fabulous US. When I got to Mount Vernon, being 15 and being dragged from a literal, I would say, the most stable place I've ever been, that was just Jamaica, to America, it was a culture shock. It was such a culture shock, but we were very happy to be there, because now, in my mind, I was going to live the perfect life of having parents. I had parents. So when I came off the plane, I had not been the same girl, you see. It's 1 year later. Now, I have a theory about this. I want to ask you what you think when you watch this. I was a skinny, no puberty had taken place when my dad came. That man hugged me for 2 weeks. I felt I belonged. I had hopes. I felt good. When I got off the plane 1 year later, puberty hit so hard. I had 36 C breasts. I had curvature waist, until my father did not know it was me. I remember the first thing he said, it was, no, no, no. Where is Donna? Where is Donna? I went, Donna, this can't be Donna. This is not the Donna that I left in Jamaica a year ago. I had completely blossomed. And I have a theory that when you give things love, not just humans, dogs, any creature, it blossoms. It really blossomed. And I was the creature that blossomed. And man, did I completely feel wanted. And I walked over, he gave me a hug. And this was the first time I blessed my eyes on my mother. We had seen pictures of her mother, but she always looked like it didn't make sense to me. She was very light skinned. I was this very dark girl. She had a broad Chinese looking face and Chinese eyes. There was something about her that didn't make sense to me. If you asked me, I would have thought she would have been the paternity fraud, not my father, because I looked what I thought just like my father. My mom was so brown skinned, I didn't look like I came from her. I mean, I know better now. Now, she also had this very voluptuous hip. She was a very, what we call in Jamaica, fat and rosy. Rosy and fat. And she would walk and she waddles. Waddles. She still have this grace and beauty about her that I just, her face was as smooth as a baby's bottom. That's how we described her. And she still has the skin at 72. She just has flawless skin. And I was looking at her with dreamy eyes. The way she moved just was like, wow, this is my mother. She came over, she hugged us. And, it was, by the way, not all four of us got to migrate. We only could migrate two at a time in that. For whatever reason, they only gave two of the children visa. And then they said they will give the other two 1 year after we were in America. So that's how our family traveled. So it was myself and one of my siblings who was 2 years older than me, and her and I got to go to America. So we hugged and they took us home to our new home, and we end up living at 8th Avenue in Mount Vernon. Like I said, they didn't look like they cleaned their house to me. Their yard was dirty, in other words, to me. But it was really just the leaves falling from the trees. I just never knew about any different seasons. And it just looked weird. Why is all these leaves on the ground? Why are the people them so nasty? That's exactly what I said. And my mom said, no, Donna, no, no, no. This is how it is. The trees fall. And I said, oh. And I'm telling you, them days, my patois was hardcore, okay? We didn't speak no English. Anyway, we went into the house and I loved the house. I loved the fluffy carpet. I don't like carpet now, but I loved the fluffy carpet in the house. The house felt very lovely. I was okay with the home. It's what went on in the home that was pretty toxic. It turned out, in the quickest way I can tell you, my mom was a victim and my father was an alcoholic. Now, obviously, I didn't know that at the time. I couldn't even put those in words. Even at 15, I didn't understand that dynamics. They would party. I love this. They would have a party every single weekend. It felt like we had a party. My mother was that avid cooker. She could whip up different kinds of meals and serve to our guests. There was always people coming in for the party and the food. My father was the dancer. So what you see in me carrying on YouTube, or if you ever see me dance on IG, or if you ever be in a place, I will always be dancing. I really feel I learned a lot of that just observing my paternal fraud dad. And him and I were so close that even those moves, when I move, I could feel his soul at one with mine, because he was such a joyful person in that regard. From my mother, I feel like my mom is always and still is. I had the most amazing conversation with her this morning. I'm shooting this on Mother's Day, and it is such a lovely thing, because before I started anything, I was talking with my mom, and we were talking about forgiveness and all the different things like that. And I think what I remember first about my mom is that I laid on her bosom. She had big bosom, much bigger than, just big bosom. And I would just lay on her, and she felt like a cuddly teddy bear. I could just go there and cuddle on her, and she would let me. I was the only one who did that. I don't know. Maybe I just needed that kind of nurturing. And she's like, Donna, you loving me? She would always give me hugs, and, I climb in her bed. So it's almost like I was still in a little girl mode. I needed the affection of my mother. And when I think about her and I now, and if I have to think, what of her characteristic I have, I think my mom is a loving woman. I think she loves peacefulness like myself. I think I take a lot of that from her. She really loves to dance as well. I got some of that too. And I don't know, I think more that generous spirit. That's what I would think I take from her. When we got to America, because it was my sister and I, funnily, the dynamics of my two sisters before were very close. They still are today as grown women. And they were so tight. I was always the one who felt estranged. And, you know, in those days, remember, I was known as my father, my paternity fraud father, that I was a different father from my two sisters. So there was always that I was singled out as the different person, right? Now, when my sister and I went to America, that changed a bit, meaning we had each other only. My other sister did not have the third, which is my oldest sister. They didn't have each other as much anymore. And we didn't have telephone where we could call as much. We had to walk miles, like I said, way down to the shop and up to the police station to make a phone call from a payphone. And that didn't happen but probably once a month, if that much. I don't remember the time period. But I know enough that my sister and I had to draw close to each other. We were they're in what we call foreign. Jamaicans, we call America foreign. And we were in foreign and we had to draw to each other now. And we were okay in Jamaica, though we fight. Like I said, we had a union, we had a bond. So it wasn't like we had to start from scratch. We just bonded and we spent our time together and it was fine. The parties, especially when we would be watched, we're discovering television. You know, it's 1986. There's like MTV. We're discovering all sorts of things we had never had. We're discovering food we never ate, bologna, hot dogs, all the crappy food that you couldn't pay me to eat now. Unless it's vegetarian ones, of course. But we were really, really, really getting to know American food, bagels, cream cheese, all the things we never in our lives heard about. You know, foreign food was now our new diet. Now we had cornflakes galore. We can eat as much a bowl. We didn't have to, we had condensed milk galore. We didn't have to go steal it from our refrigerator. It was, this life in that regard felt abundant, right? Versus where everything in Jamaica we had to eat from the trees. Now reverse that today. Obviously, I see that so different. I turned that completely around where I think the abundance was what we had in Jamaica in the trees and the actual, I don't want to call it anything other than non-nutritious food that looks like abundance. Can I say it's poison? I believe it's poison. That poisonous food is not abundant. It's not abundance. It's not what we thought it was. Anyway, we had galore of that. And we were happy in that regard. However, my father, who, because he drank so much at these gatherings, we're just discovering that he had mood swings, right? And these mood swings will come when, as soon as something, the smallest things could just go off key, where it wasn't, if he's drunk, you're going to have a problem. He wasn't a happy drunk. He would be angry when he's drunk. And any little thing that he probably would have been loving and kind about before, that becomes an opportunity for him to displace anger physically and verbally upon us. So we quickly noticed that there was some issue, which means we locked ourselves in a room most of the time when the party is going on. Once we've served the people, because my mother would ask us to go out and serve the trays, and we were learning about knives and forks on a table placement for the first time. We never knew about that. We had knives and we had forks in Jamaica, but we didn't have a dining table where we dine. I told you we were cooking from outside outside pots and wood, and we had none of that luxury. The little dining table that was inside the house, my grandfather would sit around that dining table and eat. We ate on like a little rock here and there, the steps, we ate on the back of the pit. We ate different places, but it wasn't like a family convene for a dinner and everybody would be around a table. That's not what we lived like. But now this was her life in America. My mom was very much prestigious woman with the way she likes her stuff. She likes her napkin folds certain way. We had to learn about where the fork is placed versus the knife versus the spoon. We carried out the tray. So we were learning a lot of etiquettes of being a woman and how to fold a towel inside the bathroom. Now, spin back a little, why my mom was so eloquent at that. Even this morning we discussed this. My mom was working for $40 an hour. $40 for an hour to $40 a work shift to go and clean these massive big houses. I wish it was $40 an hour. It was 40 US dollars for cleaning an entire house. She would run around 3 different houses in a day. So she's making what? 3/4, right? $120. She's butt tired, okay? But she was doing this, but what she learned within those work was how to keep an abundance house, because she a nice house, how it looked, how to present a house, and it looked extremely domesticated. And that because she was doing that for very wealthy people's home, big ones, cleaning from top to bottom, $40, and doing 3 of them per day. No, not the kind of work I prescribe to, but that's what she had to do in her time. So we were now enjoying the fruitfulness of her education that she had learned from being a housemaid, basically. My father was a dental technician. My father had I have great teeth, right? They're strong. That was weird, knocking my teeth, but they really are. They always had been these big teeth. I remember thinking that was why that was my daddy, because he had teeth like mine. The only difference was he had a gap in the middle of his teeth, right? And I always prayed for this gap when mine were closed, because when he grinned, it was just a small gap and it just made him look so handsome. And I always wanted that gap. But funnily enough, he was a dental technician and he took care of his teeth and his smile, I think from his education as well, from being a dental technician. So he would go off and work as a dental technician. My mom would go off and clean the house. And of course, as a family, we would convene, him being a drunk and my mom being a victim, because my mom was peaceful. And so, of course, all she would ever want to do is pacify him. Okay, Alvin, okay, calm down, that kind of thing. And bring him to a soothing place where the harmony in the home can be maintained. And I think all she ever wanted was not to have him displaced upon us. And so the day when that finally just broke loose and happened, I'll never forget it. I was coming from my first 4th of July. So imagine we arrived there in May. It wasn't that long after. We were just over a year now of being there. And I got to see my first Independence Day in America. Well, I was to get back, let's say 9 o'clock p.m. And they had the party going as usual, celebrating, and they throw the best party. So it was well attended. And I am coming in 1 hour late. So if he said 9, I made it on 10, because I was into the fireworks, watching it in the Bronx and with my friends from school. It was so much fun. I came into the house and he gave me one of them side glance. In other words, I see you and I know it's not the proper time. Now, I really saw it, but I didn't think it was going to last into the morning. So I went to bed and they still carried on. The party was going on and I went into the room thinking this was going to be blown over. Well, no. Somewhere in between, he came into the room, knocked the door. But usually when he knocks to and say to come out, he sometimes give us permission to dance, to be a part of the party. That was not this kind of night. Now I was to come out and he's telling me that he's going to whoop tomorrow morning. He's going to, give me an ass whooping for coming home pretty much late. And I am like, oh, as a kid, you kind of just curl up into yourself and you don't say much, but you're like, oh, you just kind of want them to go away. Party continue. I went to bed, and the next morning, oh my God, I usually sleep naked from I was a little girl, just completely free under my covers, nice blanket drawn, and as if the devil himself came into my room. My father already had drank, I would say, I guess, the white still rum. They call it, I think, what is it? Wayne and Neville. It's Wayne and Neville white proof rum. The shit is Ray and Nephew. That's the name. Ray and Nephew white proof rum. It's potent, people, potent. And this is morning. But now that I understand alcoholism, you drink the night before, and I guess you drink the next morning to overcome the drinking that you did the night before. It makes no sense to me, but I think I get it. And so he had now, early in the morning, drank some orange juice and white rum. And down he goes, and he came into the room to talk to me now about coming home late. But the way he spoke was with a leather belt. And the belt is about this thick. And it's so thick, and the whipping is coming at me so fast. I have no clothes on, so I hadn't enough time to get up and even get dressed. So I'm using the blankets to like cover myself to block the hits, and they're coming more rapid. And he's speaking and saying things like, "You're like, I need to obey rules, and I'm this, I'm bad, and blah." And he's going hard, and I was dizzy. I remember just feeling like my whole body was drained of my life force. And I had the vanity where, a little glass, circle glass on top, and the wooden base. And he toppled over and fell and head in first. Now, I am caught with the leather belt, and I'm jumping out of the bed trying to run. My sister is running, mayhem, absolute chaos. She's running in. She's saying, "Don't hit her anymore. Stop it right this minute." My mom is frozen. His head is bleeding. And that day, I can never forget how witnessing that I had left Jamaica and I'm in America, but looks like I'm just starting a new segment of life. That if I thought the whippings were done from Jamaica, this is a whole new level I probably don't understand. And from there, I knew that our life was going to change. And that particular day, my sisters were both thrown out of the house because my oldest sister, having been dared to tell, and she just got there. Remember, she had to wait 1 year before she comes, which means she literally just got there months before. And she's been put on the street, as well as my other sister. And I feel like, listen, I'm the one who was getting beaten. I'm the one who break the rule by an hour. Therefore, I need to go with them. They shouldn't. If they're going, I'm going too. But where are we going? We don't know anybody in America. We're children. We're teenagers. However, that was our entry to America. We were out on the street. My mother was paralyzed. She just stood there. It's like she came into such shock. She didn't know what to do that morning. It's not even 10 o'clock. It wasn't even 10 in the morning. And this was how my beautiful mom had to wake up basically to this kind of stuff. It paralyzed her. And I'm a fighter. I told you that from beginning. The two things I had about myself, no matter how small I was, I learned to fight, and I knew how to be alone. And let me tell you, I was not going to go down that way. I was trying to put on clothes and try to get out of there. It was chaotic. And then from there, he's bleeding, and it was time for him to go to the hospital, the doctor, right? And of course, I know there's no way I can live in this house. He's going to brutalize me because he's cut. You don't beat the villain, you know what I mean? So any which way, that was one of the segments I remember from the violence still following. It's as if the violence in Jamaica just picked itself up and brought itself to America. And I was living in it again. Needless to say, the next one of that I remember, we ended up living with a man called Mr. Moses. It's so biblical because Moses was where we found refuge. We had a 1-bedroom. That's where we started. And this 1-bedroom, all three of us gathered. We left with garbage bags, big ones, big black garbage bags. And remember, we were sitting out front on in 8th Avenue in Mount Vernon, and looking at each other like where are we going? We don't know nobody in America. Where are we going? And mommy, of course, had pulled herself together, called her friend Moses, crying, telling him what had happened. And you have to take my babies in. I don't know, And Moses gave us this, we rented a room for Moses. And listen, my sisters were already working in the bank. They had gotten jobs as bank tellers. And I knew it was my turn to go get myself a job in the bank. I was now pretty much 16 years old. No, I was just about to be 16 because I'm August, and that happened in July. And that's when we had to leave the house. But it wasn't our first time seeing violence out of him, because I have a memory where he had gotten so angry in the middle of the party, one of these party, that I must have been out there dancing. I can't tell you what triggered him. That's the thing with alcoholism. You don't know what triggers that response in the person. So you have to learn that those behaviors to then try to avoid the triggers. I was a child. I didn't even know those things, but I remember him being triggered. And somehow, you tell me why a Jamaican in those days always have a machete in the house?